Having finished my 3.5 years in Addis, I then was appointed to serve as the PS Defense, PS Interior, and PS Foreign Affairs, where I have been for the last 2 years and a bit. This range of experience, right from the academia, the research institutes, and public service, puts me in good stand. I have had the occasion to serve internationally, to build networks with interlocutors across the globe, and therefore I feel that I am confident to champion the team that is going to deal with our international relations in the next 5 years and beyond.
Farrell, open the session. Honorable Baride.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations, Ambassador Monica Juma, for your nomination. I have no doubt in my mind your capacity, intellectually, professionally. I have no doubt about that. And from what you've told us, it's clear you do have a wide range of experience over time. But you're aware that you've been vetted before by Parliament. And you are the same Monica Juma here today. And it was a shocker to Kenyans when you were not approved on the floor of the House. Now, fairly or unfairly, everyone has their view, you did not get approved, and that shocked many Kenyans. Now, I want to ask you a question. What were the lessons learned out of that experience, and how did it shape your career going forward from that experience?
Well, I think I need to turn to the left, and I see the member for Mumias East.
Thank you, Chair. I want to also take this opportunity to thank Madam Monica Juma for this nomination, and quickly ask, how do you intend to fit in the big shoes that your predecessors left, given that Amina, the former CS, has been able to put the country to where it has been, given the kind of visitors we have had during her time? Thank you.
Can I add one more? Deputy Speaker.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations, Daktari. You've served in many capacities, and the ones that concern me more is that where you served as an ambassador, and then later as a PS Foreign Affairs. And when Kenyans, including ourselves, travel into foreign capitals, there are some concerns that we get in those capitals, particularly the policy that the Kenya government does not have or decides not to own properties in those capitals. Well, unlike other countries, for example, the Ugandan government, in London they have the Ugandan House, in Kenya here they have Uganda House. What is your take? What is it that you think is a right position, that should be the right policy, to own properties in those capitals and save some cost? Or you think there are issues about owning them, that we could continue renting in those capitals? And secondly, in the same line, many of our embassies abroad are not well resourced. They do not have sufficient resources. What is it that you would do to make sure that at least when you go to those capitals, our ambassadors do not look like the clerical officers in other embassies of other countries? Thank you.
respond.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank members for those questions. Let me begin with Honorable Mbarire on my experience of 2015 and what she seeks to know is what lessons emerged from there. It is true that there was a determination by Parliament to disapprove my nomination as Secretary to Cabinet in 2015. Significant is that although Parliament sat on Thursday, on Friday I had gone back to work. I think the first lesson was that service must go on, and that the determination of Parliament for me was based on a number of parameters, I suppose, and I think it was a decision of Parliament and therefore acceptable, whatever the parameters were. And therefore, because I still had the job of PS Interior, it was clear to my mind that work must go on, and I took my work moving forward. Now, one of the determinations and some of the issues the particular issue that had been raised was around whether I was sensitive to the members of Parliament. It is instructive to put on record that we continue to serve members of Parliament even from that Friday. And I can tell you that on the Monday I received more than 10 of them in my office of the following week. I have continued to do so even at MFA. And I have a director of liaison. I have not received a single complaint from that point. So I think the lesson is that there will be determination of decisions, but it is important to follow through with the recommendations and decisions of any institutions that is given a mandate to do so. I think that is the profound lesson out of there. It is my hope that if approved, two things: that I do not face double jeopardy. That is my first hope in this session. But that I want to assure the 12th Parliament that in my mind it is very clear what the role of Parliament is, and that we cannot execute foreign policy without Parliament. I have had the occasion to lead my team a week and a half ago to interact with the Defense and Foreign Relations Committee. And I think it was a very useful interaction. And even though we didn't know whether I was going to be a nominee for this position, there was a commitment from my team to continue engaging on a constant and regular basis. And it is my hope that I can continue to do that with, as well as with other publics, so that we can work towards putting Kenya in its rightful place among the community of nations. Let me go to the question of Honorable Washiali. I step in very big shoes, that is true, Mheshimiwa, but I am lucky. I am lucky because Ambassador Amina has been a senior colleague of mine for a very long time. When I served in Addis Ababa, she was in headquarters, and I had the privilege to serve as her principal secretary for the last 2 years. So in fact, a lot of the technical work that has been going on in the ministry, we've been driving under her direction. And I remember having a conversation with her last week to express my strong desire to continue drawing on her very wide experience internationally. So I don't see a loss. It is a challenge for me, but she is willing, and I am willing to continue to seek her counsel as a senior colleague in cabinet and as a distinguished diplomat internationally. I am also lucky because I am leading a team of colleagues. Most of the senior ambassadors at MFA are colleagues I have worked with. Most of the junior officers are colleagues we are trying to mentor together. So in a way, I am quite lucky to be continuing in my ministry because I'm not going to have to learn new ways and new people. My team is in place. And so I think I'm very lucky that way. Honorable Chepkonga has asked a question around my thoughts and vision around asset acquisition and management. Cheboy, sorry, Mheshimiwa. Asset acquisition and management. We have, comparatively to our same size countries, we have very few assets globally. That is true, even if you are to compare us, for example, with Uganda. But the practice of countries has been to make a determination on the character of footprint you want across the globe. And I think that is what we've not done from a policy perspective. When we came into, and I came into MFA, aware of this, having served in Addis and having struggled with the question of asset maintenance in Addis, it was very alive. And so we put together a team that has actually developed what we are calling the asset management policy that explains how we see the footprint in the future. And we are hoping that we can commence that discussion with Treasury, with Cabinet, because it requires actually a Cabinet approval and maybe even a parliamentary approval to say this is what we want to look like across the world in order to achieve the following objectives. And so we are at a very good place where we can very quickly finalize the asset management policy. We hope we can persuade Treasury to look at this as a stand-alone strategic intervention, because we cannot do it with the year-on development budget. It is very small. The development budget in MFA, in this financial year, we were allocated $2 billion. It was cut down to 250. We pleaded, we were added 300. So you cannot acquire asset with that kind of money. And we think from the experience of Interior, from the experience of Defense, you can actually do strategic interventions that help you to modernize and to have the right footprint across the globe in order to achieve the national interest as we have defined them nationally. So it is true, we require to have a plan. It needs to be medium to long term, and it is something that we have begun to work on. It is one of the things that I would hope that I can push forward. Meanwhile, we have already continued to acquire assets. Last year, we acquired New York. Now we have a home in New York. Our embassy there, our permanent representative mission there is acquired. We are going to be finalizing Pretoria in the next couple of months. We hope to open Somalia in less than 4 weeks today. We have finalized with Pakistan. So we are on the way, but it needs to be accelerated and it needs to be structured and planned. The resources in our missions. The resources in our missions has been a difficult one. Again, because whenever there is an austerity measure undertaken by Treasury, austerity measures, honorable members will know, target line items that are largely O&M. Travel, conferencing, training, things like that are O&M. Now, if you think about a mission, even a mission here, if honorable members receive an invite from a mission, it comes in the form of a card. Now, a card is part of the OM that goes. Domestic travel is part of the OM that is the first one to go. So part of the discussion that I've been having as an accounting officer at MFA with Treasury is to say maybe we need to exempt MFA from O&M, because our O&M is actually the scope of our work. If you are an ambassador accredited to 5 other countries, you need to move to those countries in order to do business. So if domestic travel is taken away, then it means you're sitting in your office and actually receiving salary without working. So there is some discussion there that requires to happen, which understands the character of foreign affairs in terms of what we do all the time. So, but it is true that our budget is still quite minimal. We are running at 0.09% of the national budget, which is very small considering that we are supposed to be the sharp end of the spear in terms of advancing our national interest globally.